Yo, better run the like it's the Krewe NFC, the Roundtable where the real heads be. Talking NFL, the game we adore, but from the touchdowns to the legends, it's so much more. That bucking guy, he's got the stats on lock, dropping knowledge on the field, watching every block. Back and bleeding green, cheering loud and proud. In the sea of cheese, as he's standing out the crowd. I can't hear D with the looks and the smarts, breaking down the plays, and he does it with heart. Then the stout, solid like the line. His takes are heavy, his vision's divine. Week by week, we break the game down. From every big play to every new crown. Offense, defense, we cover it all. From the springtime draft to the winner's last call. It's not just a podcast, it's a fan's lifeline. Connecting every moment from the vines to the side.
Good morning. Divisional round of the playoffs, Krewe NFC Roundtable. Gentlemen, how we doing?
I don't know. Andy's playing with something
Himself.
I'm done.
Wow. So we're not going to jump right into the Bucks game, but there are some goings-ons in the NFC North with some coaching situations. Maybe Brian can visit the good old-fashioned Adam Sandler song "Love Stinks" from Wedding Singer. I don't know. Let's see what's going on. Andy, what's going on in Chicago?
Stuff and things.
That's lots of things and stuff.
It's kind of interesting because the Bears are, for some reason, if they can't do stuff on the field, they want to do stuff, behind the scenes, which is kind of peculiar. So, for example, we were just talking about it offline, how Mike McCarthy, the Bears requested, of course, Dallas to speak with Mike McCarthy to interview for the head coaching job. And Dallas, of course, said no, but then they released him about a half a second later, and then he went and actually interviewed for the Bears job anyway, which is pretty typical of a Jerry Jones kind of a thing. And again, I think this is true, that ownership in Dallas and the general manager aren't seeing quite eye to eye. And because, if he talks in third person, plus there's like four other people, literally he can talk in like the 16th person. It's the weirdest thing. But there is also, Jerry Jones, he's an interesting individual, that's for sure. Now, one of the other things is, the rumors is, of course, Ben Johnson had gotten an agent in Chicago, and of course that swirls around more rumors always coming to Chicago. That deal may not necessarily come through. He might end up going either to the Raiders, possibly Jacksonville, something like that. I think he would probably have a better situation in Chicago because he has more to work with right off. But the Raiders are kind of like the West Coast edition of Dallas. Is you don't necessarily know what they're doing. They just like throwing money around, and it's one of those things where Ben Johnson I might just want to go and get a big full bag before I do something I actually want to do. But who knows? Who knows? So there's also the possibility of Marcus Freeman, of course, Notre Dame head coach. If by chance he ends up winning the national championship, his stock may in fact go up. And he's a heck of a coach. He really is. And you have players there at Notre Dame that could potentially, beat an Ohio State. But because Ohio State's a superior team in the Big Ten, always has been. There's I think there was like a Division II school in Ann Arbor. I don't remember the name of it, but.
Well, geez, here we go. Shots fired.
So, anyway.
But yeah, the Bears are, like I said, they're making moves, making Bears moves. Unfortunately, at this point, so let's hope that a Johnson could in fact come in, because he might actually end up being more of a positive for the Bears than a negative, if anything.
Well, the interviewing with the Bears might be a huge negative for the Lions. I mean, both the Lions head coaches are off on job interviews on their bye week. Both the Lions are assistant coaches, not head coaches. Both the Lions offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator are MIA the whole damn week that they had off to game plan to get ready for this game. Is that an issue? Is that a problem in the NFL's playoff picture? Is the fact that number one seed automatically gets a bye and their coaches are allowed to just go out and interview for whatever job they want? I mean,
See, and when we were talking, you guys were talking about that offline, and that was actually brought up two little points that I wanted to bring up. First off, it'd be similar like the college football and things like that, where you have a certain date that you can't talk to anybody, you can't do any moves, anything like that. So, for example, you'd be probably looking after or like shortly after the Super Bowl or the week of whatever. Look, Super Bowl is going to be on January 20th, whatever day it is. On the 15th, you can start interviewing for coaching jobs, things like that. Keep it to that point where you're far enough away that it's not going to interfere with the coaches doing their coaching during that particular playoff game. So that, along with the idea of you're talking about like having like the division leaders, why don't you do it something like a college thing? If by chance you actually have a team that's actually ranked number one in a particular stat, why not have them ranked like number one, whichever the case is? Those rankings will actually go within the playoffs and things of that nature. It's a little bit rudimentary, I understand, but you have that opportunity to be able to actually, 1 versus 8 and things like that.
Well, yeah,
And
I'm
be
all
able
aboard. I'm 100% on board with the reseeding of the playoffs. I mean, the Bucks no way should have hosted a home game this year, having the worst record as a conference or division champion. But my biggest thing is, why are we letting these coaches go to other meetings and whatnot? Why is that a thing? Why is that allowed? I understand they're trying to better themselves, and you can't really say, hey, you can't go out and find a better job. But there's got to be rules in place. I mean, there's got to be something better.
Well, I'm glad that you're asking that question, because that's been a big topic on, like, especially in the Chicago media right now, because obviously with the Bears coaching search, they're doing what they're calling their extensive search and whatnot. And I know some people think it's comical that they got 20 guys that are on a list that they're interviewing, but I guess that's what they're going to do, right? But here's the thing is, it's kind of like, even Andy was bringing up in the college game, with the transfer portal and stuff like that. Why is the transfer portal closed while the playoffs is still going on? You had a team like Marshall, they had to back out of a bowl game because half their squad went to the transfer portal. How is that fair, right? So let's just flip it to the NFL and the coaching. Okay, so, Black Monday comes around, 6 teams fires their head coaches. Great. Okay, fine. You already made your decision. I understand the teams want to get the coaching search going immediately, the interviews immediately, whatnot. However, if the season's still going on, how are you giving any team a fair shake to interview while you're in a playoff, right? So, I mean, could you as an organization say you're the Lions? Let's just take the Lions. It's fresh because of the 2 hot commodity guys. If you're the Lions organization, as a GM or an owner, do you tell those 2 coaches, you do not take one interview until this season is done? Our focus is on that Lombardi trophy. That is it.
I think that should be in the
can they
contract
do that?
somewhere. I think it should be. I mean, if your employer finds out you're looking for a job, Brian, they can fire you.
Right.
In the state of Indiana, we can be let go at any time for any reason, anything. I think it should be the same way in the NFL. I mean, how would the Cowboys feel if McCarthy was out interviewing for jobs during the season?
I'd be happy. I mean, okay, go for it. But I mean, like we were talking about before, there should be a cutoff date. I don't care when they do it. It could be after the Super Bowl. I understand they want to get this stuff in, so because there's always normal fans, and above. No, there's more than just what happens during the week and what goes on. There's stuff that goes on all year round with these teams. Now, I understand you want to get somebody in to get ready because, the draft's not too far away after Super Bowl. I get it. You got to pick a date. But here's the big issue. What hurts the most every single year is you get a team like the Lions. Now, I'm not saying they just came out of nowhere, but it's been forever. And they're going to be a hot commodity. But then you get teams that, and I use the Chiefs, and it could have been the Patriots too before that, they don't really have to worry about their coaches. They don't really leave, even with the head coach or whatever. So they have to do something, because if you really wanted, especially as an owner or even the NFL, if you really wanted your coaches to stay where they're supposed to get ready for the week, there would be something in place, and there's not. And this happens every single year. And I do think it plays a big part in what happens with these teams losing. And then you add the bye week on to this with the Lions, and it was the perfect storm for them, I think. But they need to make a date. They need to do something. The NFL needs to step in. But again, I don't know if they want to, because you're getting all these things on social media. Everybody's looking at it. Hey, this coach is going to here. Or you got like the big thing with Dallas doing to the Bears. That thing, as soon as it came out, McCarthy was going to go interview for the Bears, social media lit up with making fun of Jerry Jones, making fun of the Bears, making fun of the NFL. And that's all clickbait for them. And that's all, it helps them get sponsors and everything else. So I don't know if they really want to do it to make a change. I don't see it happening, but they need to do something.
All right, well, here's go ahead, Andy.
I'm just saying, you have a couple of things, like, for example, like even Mike Tomlin is rumored to be, of course, wanting to be, or I don't know if he wants to be interviewed by the Bears, but the Bears might possibly want to interview him. What makes that kind of interesting is the fact that he's had success in Pittsburgh. He's actually been there for the better part of 20 years. How are you going to justify really releasing a coach, or whichever the case is, because they were talking about actually trading for Tomlin, similar to the possibility of trading for Shanahan, things like that. How exactly are you going to justify giving away a coach who, even though is not necessarily, he doesn't have the greatest of postseason success, does in fact give you at least 10 wins every year? And when was the last time he's had a losing record?
Yeah,
I mean, really, how do you justify that? He's been there for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
He can't develop the players and stuff like that. So, and if the NFL were to, I think the NFL needs to do a few other things before they have to really worry about the coaches. I can understand if it's like a typical, Zoom meeting or whatever the case is. I get that. Makes sense. But if you have somebody physically coming in, even from, Detroit, whatever the case is, that's still a couple of hours. You have to prepare for that. You have to be able to get all your ducks in a row, be able to go there. You're looking at, that's at least 1 day, one specific day for that. How many days are going to be actually, getting everything pushed up?
I do think there's a rule in place that a playoff coach cannot have a physical interview. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it has to be a Zoom interview.
Yeah.
However, the prep work for that interview, it's not like going to get a job at Burger King. You're not going there and be like, look, I'll take $9.50 an hour. I can flip burgers all day. It's not like that. It's an actual, I've got this coach lined up for an offensive coordinator. I've got this coach lined up for my special teams. This is the scheme I want to bring. This is the success I've had. And they have it's an interview. You understand what I'm saying? It's not like something they just fly by night, go in, go out, they're on their way. It's intensive.
And that actually brings up another question. Who do they have interviewing these guys that actually know as much, if not more, than the guys are interviewing?
Well, I can tell you who's interviewing them right now. It's already been told. It's Warren, it's Poles, George McCaskey's in the room, and I believe there's one other guy in there, and I'm trying to think of the guy's name off the top of my head, and I can't. But it's basically those 4 guys. And
Virginia's in there too. They just can't move her out. She's actually just cemented into the wall. I don't think she's going anywhere.
But I wanted to make one more point about this Bears coaching search. I don't know if any of you guys saw the report that came out on ESPN by Kaylin Kaler. She's like an investigative reporter, and she took a deep dive into the ongoings of the Chicago Bears organization in terms of how they hire their coaches. And remember, we brought up the name Trace Armstrong a few weeks ago about how all the names are connected. Well, guess who's got a whiff of it now? Roger Goodell, and he's investigating it, because if this is the practices of the Chicago Bears, the NFL is going to step in. And believe me, when I read this article, there are several people that are on the record that obviously are remaining anonymous because they don't want to, put their name out there, but they are higher ranked executives in the league. Basically, one just said, I've never seen one agent have so much influence on one team and had so little success, but they keep going back and taking his guys. I mean, that's pretty damning of a quote. And if that's truly what the Bears are doing, why are they just completely throwing a smoke screen on 20 people? And then let's just look at the list of people and say, okay, who's a Trace Armstrong guy? And say, okay, that's the guy that's probably going to get hired, because that's all they do.
Yeah. That's shocking. Not the whole Bears thing that you actually read, but
Yeah.
Well, I do some reading.
So anyway,
how did Trace Armstrong get such thick as thieves, so to speak? And and if they do, what sort of rules are they going to be able to implement to be able to prevent that from happening? Because they do have rules for pretty much everything from your how you invest your money to things like that. So that's going to make you wonder. And if that's the case, what are they going to do? Oh, you guys can't make the playoffs next year? Oh.
the Bears can't make the playoffs to do that on their own.
That's the joke, fool.
Back to the playoffs. What if I don't know if I actually brought this up or not. I had started to talk about it in the pre-show. But what if we had a situation where, let's say, the Green Bay Packers are the NFC champion or the NFC highest seeded team? The Cowboys are the second, the Bucks are the third, the Bears are the fourth.
So we're in dream world.
It wouldn't happen because the Bears and Packers are in the same division, but just hear me out.
We're in dream world. All right.
Brian gets a bye. But instead of taking the bye, Brian can choose to defer to play the first round and give the bye to the Cowboys, right? The Cowboys then have the option to defer the bye and give it to the Bucks. The Bucks have the option to defer the bye or give it to the number 4 seed, who then has no choice but to take the bye. This would eliminate a lot of the rust, right? It would eliminate, I think the Lions, if the Lions would have kept playing through the bye week instead of having the bye, would have kept their momentum going. They were building something huge, right? They get the bye, and that all falls apart. You're pulling out trick plays in the first half.
Well, exactly. Look what happened in college football in the first year of the playoff. All 4 teams that had the bye all lost. And that's supposed to be your top 4 teams in college football. Just saying.
I mean, where did you come up with this? Were you going back looking at Vinny McMahon, XFL, and be like, hey, this is a good idea. They should do this?
No, I was just thinking you get the number 1 seed for a reason, right? It's to have the home playoff game. It's to have home playoff game throughout the playoffs. But you give them a bye, they're sitting an entire week. Granted, a team like, let's say, the Packers, who had tons of injuries, would have loved that bye week, gotten healthy, blah, blah, blah. The Lions, who've been playing all season injured, what does that help them? How does that get them healthier towards the season when none of the people are coming back anyway? I think you look at the coach, you look at the owner, do you guys want this bye? Is this a viable option for you, or do you think it's better to give it to the next team?
I don't like it.
I think if you want to eliminate the bye, if you want to eliminate all the momentum, then you add one more playoff team to the field.
Yeah, that would probably be better instead of just saying, hey, giving them option. Okay, we're going 8 teams. Everybody's playing.
That's a great option, but then you're also adding another game.
Yeah, I know, but
they're already adding another game for the regular season, anyways. Goodell basically said it's coming.
Oh, it's definitely coming.
That's dumb too. But
so now you're looking at what, two more weeks of games for the Super Bowl winning team, right? If the team that wins the Super Bowl, has to play the first week anyway, they get the home playoff. Now you're adding 2 games to that team's. Does that make sense to you? Does that?
How can you?
It's just a Benny thing. Why don't you just eliminate some of the preseason? So instead of having 4, 2.
Goodell has said 2. It'll be 2 exhibition games and then roll into the season. But I did hear there's going to be 2 bye weeks.
Correct. So now you're looking at February 20th for the Super Bowl.
And
But
that,
go ahead.
that week.
Sorry, Andy.
I was just gonna say that makes perfect sense because they naturally want to be able to actually maximize their profits, and so the longer you keep it, the more people are going to be watching, of course. And what happens? What else happens in February? Nothing.
Well, there's also talk that August 1st will be the official start date of preseason games.
Right.
Well,
So
that's earlier
you're
too.
looking at what? March, April, May, June, July. So they're going to get a 2-month off season.
Right.
Squeeze the draft in. Squeeze free agency in. You're not. The NFL is going to run all year, essentially.
Yeah, but well,
And, well,
but
go ahead.
if you guys look at it though, I mean, even though he's starting in August and whatever it ends in February, there's not a lot of people from after the Super Bowl that keep track up until the NFL.
I don't know, man.
For the most part, we do. There's a lot of fans that above that do, but I'm saying if you're looking at the normal, not normal, but a normal just fan that watches just on a daily basis just to watch because they like football, they're not getting in depth in the draft, going to watching mini camp, looking at mini camp, everything else. So now this is their way of, okay, we already have these hardcore fans looking at all this. How do we get the normal, person that we want to keep them watching more? What do we do? Well, we started early, ended late. And that's all that comes down to.
And you throw flags when everyone looks at Mahomes.
Yeah. Well,
and you keep Kansas City in the playoffs, and then you bring the younger female demographic in. Yes, 100%.
And have Taylor Swift show up.
Well, let me ask you this now: if you are in fact, decreasing some of your preseasons, you're increasing your regular season, you have 2 buys, things like that. When is the idea of actually bringing in more players? So instead of having like a 53-man roster, you go 56, 60.
Well, yeah, I think they tinkered with that during COVID, right? They brought in that extra quarterback, and you're allowed so many extra players on the taxi squad to, just in case there's an illness, case this happens. That might be something they do bring back. I think that might be something you might see, even an increase of like 10 players. But then what do you do with your salary cap?
And so what you're kind of having is, and you can even, of course, in college football, you're kind of blurring that lines. So now you have college players who are basically professionals, and you have professionals who, if you actually implement some of the college things. So, for example, let's say you have home games, you can dress everybody. Away you have 60 players. But home, you have like 100 people on the sideline, things like that. There's just one of those things. And college is even getting to the point now where you have 16, 18, 20, 50, 60 games that they're playing too. It's just, there's that thing. And so I don't know if you're going to have to take a step back and be like, hey, this is supposed to be an institution of higher education. These are the ones who are supposed to be actually leading the future generation. When are you going to say, okay, well, athletics is, secondary? You're of course aren't. It's all about the money. So I don't know. It's a very interesting situation. What's going to happen in 5 years?
Right. We got some other teams we got to get to. Sorry.
We don't.
Green Bay. What do you got going on?
Oh dear God, no.
We are obviously out of the playoffs off that loss, but I'm going to bring up 3 points. I've been kind of thinking about how am I going to summarize things and stuff like that. In terms of that Philly game, now granted, the score looked closer than what the game actually took place. But the one thing I want to bring up, and this was the very opening kickoff, the hit from Oren Burks on Nixon. That was a helmet to helmet. It was an unnecessary roughness call that was blown. And Nixon, or I should say Burks, was just fined a day or two ago, a little over $8,000 for the hit, but there was no flag thrown. Obviously, that play turned out to be an early Philly touchdown, which pretty much set the tone for the game. It's like if you're not going to start quick and you're going to fall behind, I said it last week, if you're not going to start quick and you fall behind, you're going to lose this game. Or make a mistake, you're going to lose this game. It happened. Jordan Love, everybody's talking about it was a bad year. Yeah, it was a bad year. Also, he played through, the between grade 1, grade 2, sprain in his MCL. He also had the elbow. He had a groin problem he was dealing with. I just think he was just beat up all year. We'll see what happens next year, but he better prove it because they're paying him $55 million a year to be the quarterback. And then the other thing that I took from that Philly game, they really truly missed Christian Watson, and I can't believe I'm saying that because I have been completely disappointed with them to begin with. You could tell that you could tell that the offense just didn't click. And this is going to be a big offseason for them. They need to get a bona fide number one wide receiver, whether it's T. Higgins, Devontae Adams, some of these guys that are going to be sitting there in free agency. It's time for the Packers to stop building from the draft and building from within, actually get a free agent in there that's worth a damn, and let's go. Because if you're going to waste this opportunity with a young team, this is going to piss Packer fans off more and make them happy. And I'm telling you right now, reading some of the things, I have a firm belief that if this doesn't get corrected next year, you're going to talk about a Matt LaFleur on the hot seat. And I'm just going to be perfectly honest.
Let me ask you this: Is it? Go ahead, Andy. You have something to go. Go ahead.
The only thing I was really going to say is in order to be able to actually kind of sum up the Packers season.
Yeah. And
we didn't hear that.
No.
We're gonna have to put that up there. No, there was a couple of things that the Packers I think probably could have actually done that would have been a little bit more conducive to winning. And yeah, getting your quarterback for the next several years is certainly a plus. Now, if you actually have 2 or 3 players that you've actually brought up either in the draft or whatever the case is that have actually been with the team for an extended period, they do have that experience. Now, are you going to actually draft? Are you going to get somebody who's going to be now one of the wide receivers that might be coming off of free agency that you're going to have to teach everything? I don't know. It's one of those things. But if they actually go a little bit more kind of like the old school, I think if they did more, running as opposed to the passing, and I understand why they do the passing, but as we always say, like in the black and blue, division, you run that ball. Would you consider the coach to be more of a kind of an old school, new school? Because you can see both from a different week to week.
Right. Well, but see, that's the thing. His offensive schemes it is truly a run-first team. They want to establish the run because that ends up opening up that pass game where he can get creative and scheme guys open to where it makes it easier on the quarterback to make decisions. That's always been his way of offense. This year, granted, Josh Jacobs played his ass off. I get it. But this year, him playing through injuries, I just don't think the receiving core is that good. I don't. It's just a bunch of dudes. I've said that all season. They need a theoretical number one and then go from there. It's just they missed that. It's proven. Ever since Devontae left, it's proven.
Can Tyreek Hill play in Green Bay?
I don't know if I want that nut job on my team.
Hey, that's a bona fide number
He's
one.
good. He is great. He's great, but there's a line that I don't know if I want to deal with. That's why, there was all these rumors about OBJ wanted to come to the Packers. The Packers were like, hell no, we don't want that guy here.
Yeah, I mean, Bucks didn't want crazy, but they brought AB in and he got us a Super Bowl.
I think that was more a Tom Brady decision than it was a Bucks decision, though.
He still got us a Super Bowl.
That's true. You're right.
But if you want to be able to go with a running first and then pass, what are you going to do about your offensive line? Because you've had some injuries on the offensive line too.
And that is something that I do believe they need to address. While the offensive line was rated in I would say they were more middle of the pack. They could use some upgrades, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do as the offseason progresses. The one thing I also want to say, and Andy, you might agree on this, and this boils down to just the NFC North as a whole. As much as we talked about them being the juggernaut of the NFL, isn't it kind of ironic when you actually go back and look at the teams that they played this year? How many easy victories did all these teams have? You played the AFC South.
Oh, yeah.
And they ran rampant over them.
Yeah.
They played some horrible teams this year. The NFC West was the other one.
Well, here, look, let's talk about horrible teams, shall we? You have the NFC East that has the Cowboys and two potential teams representing the NFC, the NFC Championship game. What is Dallas doing? How did they fall from grace?
Jerry.
Don't you start.
Jerry.
Don't you start. We didn't fall from grace. I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, if you listen to Jerry, we have, but I mean, you're gonna get me go on a rant, dude.
Something's got to go on in Dallas. They're on the news. They're on ESPN every day. All this great things happening in Dallas.
And that's all he
cares
cares about.
Dak.
And that's the thing. That's all it cares about. I've been saying it, damn it, since 2010, probably even longer. But he cares about keeping Dallas in the spotlight. And he cares about money. I'm telling you, he doesn't care. He can say he cares about the Dallas Cowboys organization, and he probably does. But it doesn't translate into winning football games because his ego will not let him do it. He proved that back in the 90s, the last time we were relevant, when he let Jimmy Johnson go because they couldn't get along. And nothing's going to change. And the circus is coming to town again because we let McCarthy go. You let McCarthy go. As much as I wanted to go, they're going to still do the same thing. They're going to find a coach that will do what Jerry kind of wants to do. He's going to be involved 100% of everything that goes on. He's going to be the first one in the mic with the media. And everybody goes, well, if Deion's there, because that's the big thing now is Deion. The rumors flying around with the memes and everything else, they're going to trade the number 1 pick to the Titans. Titans are going to trade the number 1, number 3, number 4 for the first round pick and Dak Prescott. Like, okay, so they could when they get Deion, so they could pick his son out of the draft. Which stuff coming out of the draft is there's a lot of people saying that he's not a first round pick.
Yeah, I think it's a 2 project at best.
So I mean, you have and do we always agree with the analysts that go with these players in the draft? No, but when you have a lot of them saying he's not a first round pick, there's probably some belief in that he's not a first round pick. So here we go again. We're going to make the circus. We're going to get Deion, and then like we were talking about before, they got to buy out Deion's contract at Colorado,
$8 million.
and then they got to buy. Then they got a negotiated contract. Everybody goes, well, Deion will be the one that stops Jerry from being involved. Okay, there's nobody going to stop him. You know what's going to stop? Mm-hmm. The only thing that will stop Jerry Jones from not being involved is the Grim Reaper. That's the only thing that'll stop him.
All right. So you say that, and then the other names that have been brought out is Jason Witten and Kellen Moore.
Yeah, I know. I was getting ready to get to those too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. No, you're
rant away.
No, I mean that's fine. I mean it's fine because okay. Now you got Kellen Moore. You got rid of him because McCarthy didn't want him there because that's what it came down to. Because McCarthy's an offensive play caller. They didn't have even close to the same type of offense that they run, that each of them run. Okay. You fired him. He went to the Eagles. He bounced around. He's at the Eagles, and they're in the playoffs, and their offense is looking good. Now, okay, they got a great running back. Okay. Then you go to Jason Witten, who left, and
so you're telling me that the Cowboys got rid of Moore, and he's still in the playoffs coaching.
Yeah.
There's another coach they got rid of.
Yeah, it's called Dan Quinn. Yeah, he's still for Washington. He's in the playoffs too.
Oh,
So-
anyway, go ahead. Continue your point. I'm just
No, he's not just in the playoffs. He's in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah. So
It's something that now the Dallas Cowboys hasn't been to in the longest time.
29 years, 26 years, I think it is, or whatever. But there's a big list of people that are right behind us that haven't been. San Francisco is one of them too. But that's, I mean, and then okay, so you got Kellen Moore is a big one. So here we go back now. Are they going to interview Kellen Moore? If the Eagles win today, are they going to try to get an interview with him? Like, are they going to do that? Like,
if you're Caleb Moore, do you go back?
I wouldn't. He liked it. I mean, he liked it there, but I think he got a sense of when he got let go. There was a sense of like, thanks for the opportunity of giving me, my start. But he knows how it's run there. I mean, he played there. He was a player there. Then he coached there. He's seen all the stuff that goes on. I don't think he wants part of that mess. And then you got, with just Kellen Moore. I mean, we'll stay on Kellen Moore for a minute, but he's not going to come back here. I mean, he might take the interview, but he sees what goes on. He's seen it from a player up to a coach. He's not coming back.
Right.
I don't want him here because it's the same thing with whoever comes here. So
Jason Witten has only coached in high school.
And so I'm getting ready.
Nothing else.
I know, but I was getting ready to hit that after Kellen Moore because I thought Brian was going to say something about Kellen Moore.
I got a question, but keep going. It's not on that. But go ahead.
Okay, so then you got Jason Witten, who, was arguably one of the best tight ends in Dallas, unless you go all the way back to a certain guy that coached at the Bears. But notably, he was one of the best tight ends for me was in the league, even though he didn't get as much credit as he did. He left. He went down. He stayed in Texas. He basically went to the high school where his kids are, and took over to coaching there. Has taken to the state finals, I think now 2 years in a row. I don't know if they won, but I know it's been 2 years in a row. That's all he's done. Now, we're going to give him an interview for an NFL job. Here's my question that somebody told me the other day that I'm friends with that's a big Colts fan. Dude, Jim Irsay and Jerry Jones be like, hey, I'm going to one-up you. Hey, you went with Jeff Saturday. We're going to go with Jason Witten, who's never coached. Like, these two idiots, and it was like we were just having a normal conversation, and then we started talking. We're like, do these two idiots seriously have this conversation? Like, because they're doing the same thing. But whoever goes to Dallas, and I keep telling everybody this, whoever goes there is going to have to deal with Jerry. It doesn't matter if it's Dion. It doesn't matter if it's Kellen Moore. It doesn't matter if it's the Lions offensive coordinator or if it's the defense coordinator from Lions was Aaron Glenn. I mean, he was a player. He was a player. I mean, but they're not going to get past the Jerry wall. You're not. Jerry's going to put up a wall. This is what he's going to do. He's getting to the media first, and he's going to set the tone of how we're going to talk to the media.
So
it's a circus, dude. The big top is always in Dallas, and they don't put the curtain up.
Right.
The curtain.
Brian, what was your question before we get off this terrible subject?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So we all know Bill Belichick and Jerry Jones are great friends. Bill Belichick has still not signed his contract at North Carolina.
Yeah.
Is that a possibility?
No.
Because after June 1st, the North Carolina buyout drops from $10 million to $1 million.
Yeah. I know he hasn't signed his contract, but again, look at what Bill Belichick did, and the owner kind of crap stayed, let him do his thing. Dallas doesn't have that owner.
Yeah.
It's not as much as like everybody says, oh, he'd be great there. Yeah, he would if he wasn't handcuffed. Every coach that comes in is handcuffed. It doesn't matter who it is, they're handcuffed by the owner, and no matter what they do. I mean, it got so bad. I seen a report, Stephen A. Smith, who just absolutely loves it when the Cowboys lose. I mean, just loves it. And some of the stuff's
We all
awesome
do.
when I watch him. Well, I know, but I mean, he like he said, when the Cowboys lose, everybody wins. But when he goes on his rant of everything, the one thing he did say that if the Cowboys get Deion Sanders, they're going to go to the Super Bowl in 2 years.
No
And
way.
I don't know if Stephen A. has fallen from and started drinking the Kool-Aid or what he did to even believe that's possible. Of all the stuff he says about Jerry, how one person's going to change it, it's not.
Yeah.
It's
He
not
must
gonna
be
change.
writing the script if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean it's not. And look, you know, we had injuries, but it's not an excuse. But we got to do something.
It's
So-
true. He would be around. 100% agree
Yeah.
with Corey King there, or Corey King
Yeah,
Brown. Sorry.
It's not going to be. He's not coming. Jerry will find he can't. The only big splash that he can make is basically Deion. And if he can't get that, it's not going to be like his big splash in the media that he wants everything to do.
Well,
So
let's quickly transition away from the bottom of the NFC least
that was
to the
not us. though.
top. So the Washington Commanders, they are on a tear. I think they're on 5 straight, right? 5 wins in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Their game plan against Tampa was phenomenal. You went into that game as a 6-point underdog, 6.5-point underdog. Not really that I thought they were the underdog. I really think it was pretty much a wash game. But that game plan was phenomenal. They did not concede any down. They went through every series to where it was 4 downs to get the first down. It was not 3rd and 9. We're only going to go go for a 10-yard pass and get the first down. No, they took the 6-yard, they took the 4-yard, and they played the next down. They're in a position right now that they're playing probably the best football in the playoffs, but they're also playing the most aggressive brand of football in the playoffs. He's trusting his defense. He's letting Jaden Daniels do what Jaden Daniels does. And this kid doesn't get rattled. No moment is too big for him. Granted, he's very slight in build, and he's going to take a hit here or there, and it might be the end of the season for Washington. But until that happens, I would keep rolling the same game plan out. I would keep, like against, classic example, against the Lions last night. I think they were in the huddle 3 times the entire game. The quick approach. They did that soft huddle, sugar huddle, whatever you want to call it at the line of scrimmage, called the play, and they were gone. That crowd was out of that game so fast.
Mm-hmm.
Once they eliminated the crowd, it was all go, right? Washington, once they got the lead, never really looked back.
And see, and that's where not to interrupt, but I mean that's where you bring like the college game back into it too, because you have that where you're constantly, going, you're going to wear out the defense.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. But then it also, brings up to, when can you actually substitute players? Do you need more players? Things like that. What's going to end up changing in the next, 3 to 5 years? They're talking about different types of, instead of having like the stationary kickoff like they have, they're going to switch that around. They're going to do this. Where's the perfect medium? But if Jaden Daniels keeps doing what he's doing, especially like Detroit was probably the most aggressive, or at least the better defenses they're probably going to end up playing so far, and certainly maybe the rest of the year. Even though Detroit has 17, 18 injuries, something like that, they still had that game plan. And so, if by chance they can get past Detroit, the only thing you have to worry about is playing the refs in the Super. Well, I mean
they got Philly,
the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
And Philly's defense is stout. That's not a joke on that defensive side of the ball for Philly.
No.
But let me throw this at you, and you tell me this is a bad offensive game plan. 521 total offense, 320 passing, 2-1 rushing, average of 7.7 for a play. You were 2 of 2 on 4th down and 3 of 9 on 3rd down. That's a winning formula.
And they lost because that was the Lions.
Correct. Except you have a fumble lost on a strip sack, you have 4 interceptions, and you have 6 defensive points by Washington.
Yeah.
You let a team like this hang around, they're going to find a way to win. Washington lost every statistical category except for the score and the turnovers.
Weren't you saying that about Detroit?
And that happened twice yesterday. So if anybody wants to
Yes.
keep track,
Yes, it did.
So we can
Mistakes
get back
kill.
into conspiracy theory. It was scripted because now it happened twice in one day.
Jaden Daniels yesterday, 22 of 31, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, 51 rushing yards. Jared Goff yesterday, 23 of 40, 313, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, and a fumble. And with Ben Johnson getting cute, you have Jameson Williams, 0 of 1 with an interception. If this game doesn't scream rust or trying to reestablish yourself, I don't know what does. I think the Lions, again, were victim of the bye.
Yeah.
Tell me I'm wrong.
No, but I think so too. But I also, if you look at this game, I think everybody, and I'm not saying I thought the point total would be 28 with these two teams and the way they played, and they just absolutely blew it out of the water. I mean, I think the bye does hurt, but a team like the Lions, I think it hurt more than anybody. I think it's different for each team, but I think with the Lions, with them being on a roll and Washington not getting a bye is helping them because they were on a roll and they stayed on it. And I think that's the difference. I think certain teams can have byes and certain teams shouldn't. But, that's just me.
Well, let me ask you this. If by chance you're playing the entire year for the potential they have the best record for that bye week, you eliminate that bye week, what are you going to do to keep that carrot, dangling in front?
You don't think a home playoff game matters throughout? I mean, you keep that home playoff game, you keep home field advantage.
Absolutely. But you also have the option for, or the opportunity for a playoff bye. And yeah, if you're banged up and things like that, and literally within a day or two, it's like 3 days, you get out of shape, this, that, the other, and you see what obviously happens. But
yeah, Corey, if you go back and you watch the beginning of the show, Corey says get rid of the bye week, 8 seed playoff teams next season. You know what? We discussed that. The only issue is the amount of wear and tear you're putting on these players. Like I said earlier, the Super Bowl teams would end up playing 2 additional games than every other team, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's really quite a bit. But anyway, the NFC East could represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. All these years, I heard that it was going to be Dallas. It's going to be Dallas. Dallas is going to be the team next year, NFC Super Bowl. Not from you, Stout. You're a mute. I don't know. But
I'm not a mute.
You know what? I'm gonna say this term very loosely. He's actually intelligent.
Come on. Wow. Hey, Brian, limit the Jameson in the coffee on the morning machine, okay?
I don't know how to take that. That's the first time anybody's ever said that to me. I mean, I don't.
I believe, but I mean, is it like opposite day? Like Green Bay is a good team or a good place to live?
So
no. we have another game, one more game on the NFC docket. We have the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Los Angeles Rams. Eagles are a 6-point favorite here. I think it should be much, much more. LA comes in with 2 key injuries on their defense. Murchison and Reeder are both out today. The Eagles are only without Brian Young. Week 12. Barkley rushed for 255 yards against this LA Ram defense. Build a case for me for LA winning this game.
They score more points.
How?
If the only way I can see is what they've been doing about how they got themselves into the position to be actually in the playoffs is they stopped offensively. They stopped trying to throw the ball to Cooper Kupp and whatever that other kid's name is constantly. They started spreading the ball around and they started running the ball a little bit more while they were doing it. That is the only case, even though that Eagles defense is really good, if they stop what they've been doing, it's going to get much worse, I think, for the Rams. But also with the Rams, who I don't know anybody that picked the Rams to beat the Vikings.
I don't think anybody picked the Rams to beat anybody.
Yeah. So, I mean, but what they're doing right now is, you know, when Stafford's throwing the ball, he's not locked in on one person. Like it's starting to get the ball around. And I think he does that with the Eagles and they run a little bit more. I think it'll be a lot closer game. But if they go back to what they were, you know, just locked in and we're going to throw it to these two and we'll run the ball whenever, I think the Eagles just run away with it. So, I mean, if they stop what they're doing, they're in trouble, is what I'm saying.
So if your defense zones in on Saquon Barkley, you have your receivers that you can actually throw to. I mean, you have a couple of good receivers there, and you got a quarterback that can get the ball where he needs to go. So,
well, and the Rams in the first week didn't do that, and then he ran for 250-some yards.
255, but, yeah.
I mean, and then when they did do it, I mean, I think they did throw the ball. I mean, it's a catch-22 with that Eagles team, and you know, we all got to thank the Giants for letting that happen, letting him go there, basically. But if they put 8 men in the box, they're just going to throw it. I mean, it's going to be a tight game, and they're going to have to play they can't let the Eagles play their offensive style of football. If they do, they're going to have to try to keep up, and the Rams aren't good at that. So
yeah, if this game becomes offensive shootout, I don't see the Rams even being able to keep it close.
Here's the issue on this game, guys. We're not even mentioning this. It's going to be a snow game.
It is. It's chilly in Philly.
It's going to be a snow game. They're predicting 1 to 3 inches of snow during the game. Now that's gonna hinder a lot of things right there. That actually makes it more of a which running team is going to be better. Let's take this. I mean, it was impressive to see what the Rams did last week. Now, granted, I think a lot of that had to do with Darnold being Darnold. I think we finally know who Sam. I think we finally know who Sam Darnold really is. I'm just saying. I mean, I know we were like apologizing for everything we said earlier in the year, but I think between that last game of the season and the playoff game, we saw Darnold be Darnold. So let's see how that plays out. But anyways, I think LA's playing with more of a chip on their shoulder just because of everything that's been going on in LA. They want to prove that they're better than what they were. They were playing beat up most of the year. They're mostly healthy now. That defense is actually playing a lot better. I think Jalen Hurts really didn't show me much against the Packers last week that screams, is he going to do well? And honestly, there's been a lot of concerns about him all season. All you got to do is key on Saquon Barkley. If you stop him, you got to make Jalen Hurts do something. And the thing is, It might be one of those cases, one hit on Jalen Hurts, you could concuss him back out of the game. And then what happens then? You are now not a full squad team. I think that's the key. That is the key.
I'm in agreement with you, Brian. The way to beat Philly this week is to force Jalen Hurts to beat you, especially when you got a defensive interior lineman, defensive edge rusher. You got Brandon Fiske. or Brendan Fiske and Jared Verse. Jared Verse is a phenomenal talent. He's the steal for LA. He can change this game. If Jared Verse can get loose in that backfield, he can change this game.
And then
Rams secondary isn't great.
And then we also got to remember Philadelphia's defense lost their green dot last week. So now you're down your guy. You know, it's like, okay, so now as plays are coming in, you know, could there be confusion? Could there be anything? I really think this is going to be a lot closer than what the point spread is. I think this is going to be, especially if the weather really impacts this game, this thing could just turn into this one of those it's going to look like a defensive thing, but it's going to be more of a run game. It's whatever run game gets going better, you know. And then I think in terms of the quarterback comparison, I think Stafford's a way better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. And if they can just
Hurts
break
is
off,
a way better athlete,
right? But again, he's also a fragile athlete, and he's also a guy that in games he has not made smart decisions. And especially in a game of this magnitude, this is going to come down to a, you know, if you're getting rushed out of the pocket and you think you can make this throw, but yet, throws horrible. You know, I mean, it's just one of those things. I think especially with the weather and everything, I think this is going to be a lot lower scoring and a lot closer game than everybody's going to think about it. But you know, obviously you're playing in Philly. It's going to be one of those environments where you're going to have to play smart. And, you know, obviously the crowd will definitely impact the game, but I look forward to this game. Actually, I look forward to both these games. I think both these games are going to be excellent, especially because the weather's going to be impacting what happens too. So,
yeah.
The
later game, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
I just say the one thing with the Rams, I think with the weather coming, if they let him get outside the pocket, Jalen Hurts get outside the pocket, I think it's going to be a long game for them because I think he will take off running instead of throwing the ball. I think he's going to learn from his mistakes and he'll take off running, and that's going to be the big issue. If they can't keep him in the pocket, I think it'll be a long day for LA.
Right. Well, before we go, let's get some final score predictions on this one. Brian, you saying it's going to be low scoring? Give me some numbers here.
If I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go like 2017.
Who you got?
I'm actually gonna go Rams.
Wow, stout.
I really think it's going to be 24-14. I think the Eagles pull it up.
Andy,
it gets kind of
can't say the Bears.
I was just going to say the Bears by 2 scores, but you've had like traditionally you've had like the West Coast that's actually been the ones that were actually scoring like the 100 points. And then, you know, the East or the NFC and stuff like that, they've actually, you know, it's the bruising, the pounding, you know, the 14 points, you know, 14-10 kind of a victory, that kind of thing. But lately, you have things that actually kind of changed. I think actually the Eagles will probably end up winning, and it'll probably be healthy. You know, more than a touchdown, you know, probably less than 10, but more than a touchdown. And it'll probably be a relatively high-scoring game. You know, not like a 38-28, but, you know, something to the point where they're going to score 30 points.
So,
again, you asked him this question with like a minute to go. Yeah, that's on you, just so you know. He never gets
30-21. Sounds good.
You need to stop doing this. You need to start doing more of this.
All right. Before the snow, I had a 38-21 Eagles. With the snow, I think it's going to be a close game. I think wind's going to play a huge factor in this. I think the Rams might eke out a win with a field goal, kind of like Brian. I don't want to steal your score because it's actually a pretty good number there. I'll go with 27-24 Rams in this one. So Brian's got 2017. Stout's got 24-14. Andy's got 21 Eagles, and I've got 20. what did I say?
20. You said 27, 24. I believe.
Copy that. Eagle or Rams. Do we have any closing thoughts before we get out of here today, gentlemen?
We need a new owner. I'm good.
Go Irish.
Go away.
Yes.
I would like to thank our wives and families for allowing us to be an idiot for 1 hour every Sunday and a lot of the hours during the week. Until next week. Hey, guys, why don't you do some research on your potential draft prospects? We'll see you then.
Bear down, Chicago Bears.